Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone is down the end there. She's just had the ball launched for her. I'm going to launch to you some more transfer news, views and clues for you. I hope you are all doing wonderful things. It is Monday. Happy Monday to you. I hope the cobwebs of the weekend are blown away and we can get some like action going. Your like game is incredible. Incroyable! And I'm very grateful. 1,000 likes on the last 4 or 5 videos or more. I think 1,500 on one. Absolutely insane. Thank you so much for the support on the channel. It does wonders for it. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Join the 31,000 as of today. I really appreciate that as well. Hit the notification bell and drop some comments. Let me know your thoughts on today's update. I've just done a live stream this morning for a couple of hours. It was supposed to be an hour, but it turned out to be about 2.5. You know what we do, just sort of chewing the fat. But we've got some things to talk about, some updates that I didn't get to in that update, so make sure you do get into it. So first and foremost, Ben Jacobs. We know Ben Jacobs. On Last Word on Spurs, he gave a update on the Angel Gomes story. As far as he is understanding it, that Tottenham have made an offer to Angel Gomes that will see him potentially come and join Tottenham on a free transfer, out of contract. Lille, number 8, little guy, 5'4", box to box. Some people think he can play in the 6. I don't think he's the right sort of 6 for us, unless Ange is the manager and then he doesn't use a 6, but he uses, you know, sort of double 8s, whatever you want to call them, one lower lying and then the other. And I think in that role, he might be able to work it. But in terms of a traditional monster 6, the Polinia types that we've been talking about so frequently on this channel, he's not that sort of player. A very talented player, no doubt. And according to Ben Jacobs, the deal has been offered and he very well might be accepted by Angel Gomes. It looks like Tottenham are front and centre to get that one. Now, there was also benefits, of course, to having someone like him. You get the English tax on a future sell-on if you stick him back into a contract. He's also wanted by Manchester United, although I'm trying to figure out exactly where and how it is that he fits into the Manchester United squad as it currently looks. Would he be a replacement for a Kobbie Mainoo? Maybe, I'm not entirely sure. But in any event, that's the story. Angel Gomes looking likely to come to Tottenham. As again, we've been speaking about this quite a lot recently, guys, on this channel, about the notion of, you know, if you go and get someone like an Richalison, if you have to trigger that release fee of £68 million, then when you already have, I think it's £260 million at least of last summer's, as of last summer's accounts in outstanding transfer debt, the majority, or at least a not an insignificant or a disproportionately higher, shall we say, bulk of that is usually amortized over 5 years is due soon in the next year. So that again puts the squeeze and the pressure on the cash flow, which I always say to you guys, massive difference between profitability, between liquidity, and cash flow is really the king of the conversation. If you are cash rich, if you have lots of cash in the accounts, and of course Tottenham do have a lot of cash in other accounts, allegedly 14 other subsidiary accounts, according to that report that I brought to you guys last month. There's about £300 million in cash sat in various other subdivisions of the company. I don't know if that's absolutely accurate, but that's exactly what was said in that report. And that money's probably allocated elsewhere, but when it comes to cash flow within the Tottenham accounts, it looks like we're a little bit squeezed on that. So giving up the £68 million, if that was the way that it was going to transpire, I'm not sure it will, to Crystal Palace for an Richalison, is going to mean that there's consequences, connotations, and knock-on effects in that domino around what happens with regards to the rest of the transfer business. As I said in yesterday's video, I could easily foresee a window where you do go and get Richalison, even if it's not as the cash flow trigger, but just as, in order to make it work, you still have to pay a giant lump sum of that £68 million in the initial stages, and then you can maybe amortize the rest and figure out the structure of it, later on. But even so doing, that may mean that we have to look in other directions for the rest of our business for some of those marquee signings. Now, I'm not putting Angel Gomes in the marquee bucket. He is a useful player, and I'd be interested to see exactly how he was utilised, depending on whether it's Ange Postecoglou or someone else, and we're going to come to that story in just a moment. But he is, of course, a free transfer. He won't be asking for 250 grand a week or wage structure breaking money. But certainly, like I say, there is a value to having him, because if you were to figure out that he's not the guy for you in a year's time or 18 months time or whatever, then maybe you could sell him and do similar things to what we're doing with Manuel Solomon, which, by the way, is the next story. Manuel Solomon, that deal, according to reports, again, I think it's Give Me Sport this morning, I think I've seen this one, is basically done to Leeds. Leeds are absolutely pushing for this one. So when we spoke yesterday about the potential for Tottenham to go back to Crystal Palace and say, do you fancy some cash and a player, and one of the names that was mooted as a potential solution to that kind of puzzle would have been Manuel Solomon. Also Manuel Solomon, part of stories linking him to Everton, but it seems like his heart is set at Leeds and Leeds' heart is set with him. And so we're trying to figure out, according to reports, what the right price is and how to structure it. But Manor Solomon, as I say, to Leeds, it looks like it's back on, but we have to wait and see whether or not that's going to work out, and whether, of course, the Angel Gomes story is going to look similar in that we're buying him really because it's an opportunity rather than for the absolute here now, ready now value. Although, as I say, he's a very good player. He's just, I don't think, necessarily the solution to what we entirely need. Let's move on from Manor Solomon and from Angel Gomes. Let's talk about Johnny Cardoso, shall we, for a second. We know, of course, he chose to not come to Tottenham. He went to Atletico Madrid. And what's absolutely fascinating is that there's stories out right now that are saying that Tottenham are not going to make any of the money on the sell-on fee. Now, remember that the deal was sort of structured in two ways. We sold to Betis Giovanni Lo Celso, and there was a sort of two-party swing on that. If we wanted to buy him, and if he wanted to come, then we had a deal agreed in place for £21 million. The alternative was for him to go somewhere else, and Tottenham would receive, I think it was 35% of the sell-on fee. The fact that he's gone to Atletico Madrid suggests that you would think that you would get 35% of whatever that price was, and yet, according to all reports today, that's not happening. That actually, because he rejected Tottenham, rather than Tottenham not activating the clause successfully, or rather than Tottenham, not choosing to activate the clause, then we forego the 35% or whatever that fraction is, whatever that percentage is, which seems to me like it has to be weird and wild. It's the weirdest story ever. I can't believe it would be true. If it is true, then that would mean that someone, either Daniel Levy or whoever structured that deal, left a gaping, wide open hole in the contract, in the loophole market, for them to be able to dance through, whereby Tottenham put in a bid, he rejected us, and in so doing, it's a different situation than one in which Tottenham didn't choose to activate it, and therefore the first opportunity with him being sold, we got the 35%. The fact that he rejected us, according to reports, means that we get nothing. Like I say, I'd be absolutely gobsmacked if that is true, and if it is true, then that is one of the biggest mistakes that I've ever seen, and it's an £8 million give or take circa, or €8 million circa, donut mistake that obviously will draw some criticism, a lot of criticism towards Daniel Levy or whoever it was that structured the deal, and will definitely put a question mark over the idea that he is this genius businessman and master negotiator. I'd be amazed if it's true, but that is what's being reported in Twitter and getting around in some of the places like the Spurs web and those sorts of things. Don't know, just bringing it to your attention. Let me know if you have any more information on that. Donna Cullen this morning has left the club, has stepped down from the board. Interesting one. That was put out. I made a bit of a faux pas, I think. As soon as I saw that story, I retweeted the story and said, there's only two things that this could possibly be. One is it's either Vinny dropping a nuke on his first day at work and sort of upsetting the organisational structure, or two, there's some sort of disharmony at the board level around what to do with Ange Postecoglou, and the consequences of that are that she's decided to fall on her sword. Turns out I think two things are wrong about that suggestion. One is I was corrected by George Bannister, who came into my tweet and said, actually, this is a long-established retirement plan that was supposed to happen last year that didn't manifest. For some reason, he's not sure why. Now it has. And so, look, I wasn't aware of that. And I've tried to explain to people in the tweet. They keep retweeting it. It keeps getting liked. Sometimes you know that what you've set out there now is now misinformation, but it was just my opinion. But I was working on naivety and ignorance. But either way, I still think that, and the other part of that story as to why it's weird is that apparently, from what I've read subsequently, is that Vinny doesn't actually start until next week. So I couldn't have been more wrong. But either way, Donna Cullen has left. What I would say is, though, it's kind of a suspiciously timed thing, because there's also the other man, Matthew Colcott, who allegedly has also left the club. Again, I'm going to say allegedly to all of this now because I'm not sure about anything, but allegedly left the club. According to Company's House, he has had his personal details that have been updated, which may be just a personal update of his details regarding where he lives or something, but it also might mean that his role or his position at the club has changed. He, of course, is the finance and commercial director. So it's interesting that there's a couple of changes within that 1st of June, the start of the new season, if you like, the start of the new window. And so we'll see what that means. We'll keep an eye on it. Is it something to do with Vinny, I mean, look, Vinny won't have the mandate or the authority to come in and obviously vote people out of the board or sack people from the board or anything like that. But look, that doesn't mean necessarily that he hasn't come in, had conversations with Daniel Levy on a consultancy basis and said, look, the new direction needs to look like this, and therefore we don't need this, we don't need that. And then those conversations are then taken place at boardroom level, whereby someone like Donna Cullen, who had the intention to step down at some point anyway, has then said, you know what, maybe this is the perfect time to get out of the way because, you know, I don't want to be here sort of making arrangements or voting on certain concepts that, you know, for his new vision when I'm looking to retire anyway. So Donna Cullen's gone. Look, from all reports, the Tottenham fan base on Twitter has sort of received that news with open arms. I think her proximity to Daniel Levy, always seeing her at the games next to him and things, or at least in the close environment to him, has certainly kind of rubbed off, and I think maybe she's guilty by association. But at the same time, I think she's also been very much involved in, or at least the noise and the rumours have been that she's been involved in some key decisions. I think from what I heard, it was her that said no to the idea of Pochettino coming back instead of Ange Postecoglou. So, you know, maybe out with the old, in with the new. Maybe it is time for something fresh, and I can't wait to see what's next on the Vinny list of to-do items, if that makes sense. Next one, Thomas Frank, new manager, right? The odds of him coming in have been slashed. They are now less than evens, close to 5 to 7 on. At that point, you sort to start to go, well, surely there's absolute merit to it. And according to all reports, Ben Jacobs again has said that he has had several meetings with Tottenham over the last few weeks or last couple of weeks. Still no decision has been made, apparently. We don't know, right? Ange Postecoglou, is he in, is he out? It's the hokey cokey of Tottenham Hotspur. He's on holiday. Apparently Levy's back to work today. Still no decision has been officially confirmed, but apparently behind the scenes the decision has now been made one way or the other. We are waiting to find out. Fabrizio Romano on that note has also said that Levy's back to work, but no decision has been made externally, and he's very close to making it imminently. Next story on the transfer news, views and clues for you guys. Destin Udogie to AC Milan. I keep mentioning this to you because it keeps coming back. Every day I see more and more and more, and I don't know why, you know, if it's happening or what. It's got that Theo Hernandez vibes to it. Theo Hernandez has definitely fallen off. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I don't think it's true. I don't think it's happening. I'm sure he would love to. I'm sure AC Milan would love to have him back in Italy, where he would play in a sort of different style of league, and his sort of pace and his ability to get forward would be absolutely terrifying for those Milan defenders. For those Italian defenders. But the story can't really make that much sense to me. What was more scary for me was the idea of whether or not Manchester City might come calling for a Destiny Udogie, and then would he have his head turned? Well, that story seems to be put to bed, because today it looks like they have gone for Rayan Ait-Nouri, Wolves left back. Still not a here we go or a done deal there, but something to keep an eye on. And if that's happening in that direction, he of course was a player that Tottenham were looking at as a potential to come in to play that fourth fullback role alongside Udogie, Porro and Mr. Jed Spence. But Udogie to Milan, the story won't go away. I'm not sure if there's any truth to it, but I just bring it to your attention. Next one, Tyler Dibbling. Everywhere today. Tyler Dibbling to Tottenham, 45 to 50 million pound. I've spoken about him several times on this channel. It was back in January that he was being asked, or the price tag attached to his head was 100 million pound by Southampton. Absolute madness. Look, a very talented right winger, very young, very English, very potential based, and something that, you know, I'm sure he'll be a fantastic player. But when you park 100 million pound price tag on someone that hasn't really done it yet, then you are pricing in perfection. That has been done. That style has been attempted by Brighton when it came to Evan Ferguson, and look what happened there. He fell off a cliff. Most 100 million pound transfers do not end up providing value for the purchasing club. Only a couple here and there have done. I'm not sure Tyler Dibbling was ever valued at 100 million pound accurately. Of course he wasn't. Even at 50 million pound, it's far too pricey, far too punchy, and I'm saying no thank you. If you can get the price down significantly to a 25 million with a sell-on fee or some potential add-ons, then I'm sure it'll be something that Tottenham and Daniel Levy would look at. But you know what? The price with the English tax, the price with all of those types of, you know, just normal Premier League bipartisan sort of transfers, it just doesn't work out that way. It's always more expensive, or at least it is if Tottenham are paying the money. And so I'm not sure this one will happen, but there's the story. 50 million pound, 45 to 50 million pound is the story. Talking about reducing the price to more reasonable levels, Matisse Tell, Bayern Munich are desperate to get this guy out of their club and into Tottenham's hands. The story clearly that was poking around yesterday that Tottenham have an obligation to buy him as long as there were certain conditions that were met that had, according to all reports, been met, or 99% of them had been met, and so we were obligated to pay £60 million. That story surely is in the mud, because today all the stories are that Bayern Munich are so desperate to get him out, they want the negotiations to come back to the table with Tottenham Hotspur, where they're willing to slash that price in half to £30 million, 35 million euros. It's an interesting one. Listen, at some point the price gets to a point where you have to go, yes, there's value there. I think at 30 million it's interesting, but only if the options of the alternatives, the opportunity cost, is not particularly satisfying or juicy. Is the juice worth the squeeze at 30 for you? Let me know in the comments. On the live stream earlier I asked the same question. It still lent towards no. 64% of people said they are not interested in Matthias Tel even at 30 million. Maybe that's because they have their heart set on Eberechi Eze. There's no stories there to update you on today, so I won't be waxing lyrical about that one. But the Sané story is out again. 4-year deal, according to Tavlieri, however you say his name, the monster guy that's always on the board with these sorts of, always right on the money with these sorts of stories. He's saying that Tottenham have offered a 4-year deal. What's interesting is we've said before on this channel he wanted to move back to the Premier League. He wanted to live in London. I was always curious as to why. Story comes out today that his wife and family live in London and that he flies back from Germany to London on the regular. So he wants to move back to London and be with his family and play football. And you hope on that basis that Tottenham, there is legitimacy if you are interested in him. I think he's going to be a wonderful player. I do think there's some shenanigans going on with Bayern Munich. I'm not sure how it looks, but I think that maybe the reason why Bayern Munich are so desperate to get the price down on Matthias Tel is to twist Tottenham's arm, to get Tottenham to pay that money so that then we don't necessarily go after Leroy Sané, and that they can then use that £30 million not only to write down the value of the Harry Kane transfer, but also maybe to be able to pay the difference in whatever it is that they can't seem to get Sané to agree to the deal with to stay in Germany. But if he wants to go to London for personal reasons, then again it puts the boot into the Tottenham sphere, or maybe Arsenal. And the same journalist this afternoon has come out and said that not only are Tottenham offered a 4-year deal and it's looking good for us, but that Arsenal are looking to hijack the deal at the last moment, guys, and they're trying to steal it now. For Tottenham, he would be offered a permanent, kind of indisputable starting role on the right-hand side of midfield, competing with Brennan Johnson, but Brennan Johnson would be relegated to, I guess, rotation level. At Arsenal, that's not going to happen. At Arsenal, he's going to have to compete with Bukayo Saka unless he plays off the left-hand side and then competes with Martinelli. Maybe Arsenal want to move Martinelli on. Who knows? But that's the story. It seems like it's a shootout between Arsenal and Tottenham for Leroy Sané, and you just love it if we could get this one over them as European champions. Arsenal can't offer that as a sales pitch. Tottenham can. Let me know your thoughts. Do Tottenham win Sané's signature, or do Arsenal? Let me know, guys, in the comments below. Next one for you guys is Jarrad Branthwaite, a story we've been talking about for months on this one. I don't think it's going to happen, but Tottenham have turned their attention to both him and Mosquera. I spoke about Mosquera before. He's a really highly rated guy out of Spain, 20 years old. It looks like he's still going to Leipzig, so I won't waste my time talking about him. But Jarrad Branthwaite is going to be the new target because Mark Gahey has turned us down. Mark Gahey is more interested in either going to Manchester United or potentially to Newcastle. He wants to go up north, or at least he sees more merit in either the money or the project or whatever that's happening in the choice of club that he prefers up there. But he has rejected us, and consequently Tottenham now are looking towards Everton's Jarrad Branthwaite as a potential make weight in our decision around how do we go forward. Now, again, how do you see that sort of level of transfer? I think it's going to be difficult to get it done. I think he's a brilliant talent. I'd love to see it. Genuinely would. But if you're getting someone like him, does that suggest that maybe the Ange Postecoglou story is kind of being sunset here, and that we are going to bring in someone who is more likely to, at times at least, pivot to a back three? And if so, you then need the likes of a Micky van de Ven, if fully fit, a Jarrad Branthwaite and a Christian Romero, and obviously a Danso sitting in there. Like, if you get a Jarrad Branthwaite in, then do you know what, guys? At the end of the day, we've got one of the best backlines in the business in the Premier League. However, I think the other argument would be, even with a back four, given Micky van de Ven's injury problems and the recurrences of his hamstring, that we can only really rely on him to be fit for about 50 to 60% of the season. And so having someone like Jarrad Branthwaite to step in and play, you can picture to him that he's going to play just as many minutes as Micky van de Ven is in all likelihood, even in a back four system, and he's a perfect fit. Left-footed, big, strong, great in the air, ticking some boxes of things that we're not that great in, but on top of that, he's also fast, he's athletic, he's young, he's homegrown, and he is certainly someone that's not going to be cheap. It'll be interesting to see how that deal is structured, if at all. Jack Grealish, another name that's back on the list today, but we're not going to talk too much about him. Same with Nkunku. These stories won't go away, guys, but we'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts, like, subscribe and comment, and as always, bye-bye.